Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Let's talk about The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. For the most part, this was a good book. In the end, I gave it 3 stars out of 5 just because over the course of it, there were a number of these asides that the author would take, frequently to remind you that he had a PhD, but also to share his thoughts on things not related to dinosaurs, but, hey, I've got this opinion and I really need to share it with you type thing. We joke about how annoying cyclists are and like vegans and crossfitters and marathon runners and stuff, or how like when somebody discovers a new gender for themselves, they're like, oh, by the way, I'm this. It's like, that's cool, like nobody asked. But it just keeps coming up in conversation somehow. Well, this guy, like, there were times when it was pertinent to what he was discussing, and other times he would just randomly be like, oh, and by the way, I have a PhD. It's like, okay, cool, nerd. But anyway, he's talking about the entire field of paleontology, and my takeaway from this book in the end was that this is a field that is constantly changing, mainly because it's very recent to science. Like it only really kicked off in the Western world about 200 years ago, and he talks about how ideas about the age of the Earth and fossilized animals and extinction and stuff has changed in that time. This is where he used one of those asides to mention how the fundies had really aggressive ideas about God and whether something could even go extinct, and you weren't allowed to say that the Earth was older than a certain age. Seminin talked about this in his book, The American Monster, or something. Like, it's important to understand how the science has changed since the beginning, and he didn't go off at length about that, but it was just one of those asides in there. He also talked about there was some guy who applied eugenicist parallel thinking to his study of anthropology as well as evolution and stuff. And Brusatte, he's like, this guy probably wouldn't have liked me because I have an Italian last name. It's like, dude, you're smart and you're talking about an interesting subject. You don't have to be annoying too. Like, it's okay, dude. But it parallels. Gosh, what am I even trying to say here? It's a book that talks about the discovery of paleontology and how paleontologists' understanding of the field itself has altered with every new discovery. A couple of years ago, I did a video about the Bone Wars, and I covered a few different books that I'd read on that subject and about dinosaurs in general. One of them, I believe it was called All Yesterdays, was a book that covers how we came to understand or think that we understand what dinosaurs looked like. And a lot of it can be traced back to one particular artist in the either late 19th or early 20th century, who depicted them in a particular way, but in a lot of ways he was just guessing. There are numerous paleontological discoveries since then, and even within just the last 20 years, that have changed that understanding. They touched on that briefly in Jurassic World in 2015. They didn't quite say how because a lot of the jury's still out on some of this stuff, but Henry Wu, the scientist guy who apparently later became like the dude who runs Jurassic Park, at least in the movies, he was saying, if we made them accurate, like none of these dinosaurs are accurate. We engineered them to look like people think they would look. If we engineered them to be accurate, they would look very different. Like, he didn't say how, but that was just an acknowledgement of the fact that what they actually looked like with meat on their bones is different from what we think. And I am going 11 miles an hour on a back road behind some guy who is probably smoking pot in his car right now. Can we pick up the pace just a little bit? Anyway, I think two of the most fascinating segments in this book were when he talked about how there was some paleontologist who teamed up with a computer modeling engineer to come up with the most accurate model they could of a physical Tyrannosaurus Rex based on the skeleton. And how it would have moved, how it would have attacked things, how it would have eaten. And the explanation of that scene was really, really cool. It talked about how it would have been able, like how fast it would have been able to run, probably around 25 miles per hour. But it was more of an ambush predator or a quick strike predator. It wouldn't chase you down. That was a bad expenditure of calories, and it wasn't always successful. Things like that are fascinating. And that's stuff that they can maybe not definitively prove, but they can establish it and defend their position very convincingly based on, like, here's what we do know, here's what we can extrapolate from this, here is the best guess that we have. I find that part of the field very intriguing. The other thing that was really cool was there's this guy who was studying, like tiny little microscopic cellular structures that they were able to find in fossils. And he found a correlation between the shapes of these cells and the pigmentations, either in skin or predominantly in feathers, is what he was talking about for the purpose of this chapter. But because of that, they're able to, again, like, aggressively defend this position that the variety of colors in these feathers for dinosaurs back then was similar to, how peacocks have feathers in their tails and stuff. And he talks about the different purposes of wings and flightless birds, and why a creature would evolve these if it wasn't going to be able to fly. Like, all of that stuff is cool, and I find it enlightening. And on that front, as he's able to kind of condense hundreds of millions of years of the animal kingdom on Earth into 10 hours of audiobook listening, he gives you the aerial view that you're looking for of this period, how we came to understand anything at all about these creatures, how it's changed in the last 200 years, what we can maybe not definitively prove, but, like I said, aggressively defend and convincingly demonstrate. And then from there, like, what we might learn about them going forward. This is a cool book. Like I said, I still give it 3 stars out of 5, and maybe this is more about the mood that I was in when I was reading it. I had a really bad route today. But this is a cool book. My brother recommended it to me. He is also coincidentally a PhD, but not of the kind that likes to remind you of it. Probably because, like, his job has nothing to do with his doctorate, but he's really good at his job, and we're all proud of him. Personally, I think it's cool that he has a PhD. It's not like he swaggers around and makes anybody call him Dr. Bradley and puts it on his signature in his emails or anything. But it's cool. I'm proud of him. He learned in the most expensive way possible that a PhD is pretty worthless. What do they say it stands for? Poor, hungry, and destitute. I say it stands for push-ups handled daily, but my route really got away from me, so I have not yet handled my push-ups. I shall have to go get my PhD when I go home. Anyway, that's enough for now. This is a good book. Read it if you want to. Drive safe. See you out there.